Welcome to Creating Healthy Organizations. I have David Burkus here today, who is an author, a professor, as well as a speaker. And he just got finished talking to the 2017 conference on what it looks like under new management, ways that we can modify our existing protocols, the way we work together in organizations, and how we can become more effective. So, David, thank you.
Oh no, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you for letting me sit down. Like you said, we just came from that talk. So.
And you're a very animated speaker, which is phenomenal. I think that you engaged the entire audience, and like you said, that some of them have more questions than they're leading on. So what we're going to do is ask you 4 questions,
okay,
and then maybe we'll be able to share it with an audience. What drives your interest in healthy organizations? So I guess this will go to a little bit of your history.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody should be, because it's part of being a decent human being. So that would be one. But no, I mean, we're at a place now where the old school levers of carrots and sticks just don't work. Most employees have tasks that are too complicated for, I mean, if you know exactly what you're supposed to do and your job is to repeat that one task all the time for 8 hours a day, it's really easy, and probably arguably carrots and sticks are still effective for that. Most people don't work at that. And so we have to be thinking about if most people's work is in their mind, if it's solving problems and having to really exercise their creativity, then we have to think about what are all of the factors that influence that. And one of my buddies, Todd Henry, has this great saying that he hopes people will be prolific, brilliant, and healthy. And I think often we think just about prolific and brilliant, right? Do a lot of work and do it brilliantly. We don't think about that we need that healthy piece, otherwise these two things won't happen for much longer. You'll burn out eventually.
Completely agree. I think also too, when you speak of health, you talk about what is the balance in your life, your home life as well as your organizational life, your company life, and whatever you do here translates to here, and then vice versa, so that you're able to be the person at home that you want to be, and then be the person in the workplace that you want to be, having your...
Yeah, I mean, so work-life balance, for example, is a really interesting conversation, because family or whatever you choose to do, family, friends, etc., is obviously central to your life, but we as humans, work is still central to our identity in some capacity. Like, there are a bunch of people that rant about, we shouldn't ask people, so what do you do when we meet them for the first time? But the truth is that we kind of should, because what did you choose to make, to produce, to contribute to the world? That's always going to be part of our identity. The challenge is where the rewards for that should be healthy living in sort of all aspects, not just being great at that. If you're great at that, but you gave everything else, so that's what does it profit a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul, right?
Right.
In the other capacity, though, I don't think we can encourage people to look at work like, well, this is what you do for 40 hours, and we balance that with all this other stuff, and this is what we put up with so that we do the rest of this. I think it's far more, to be able to do it effectively for 40 plus years in a career, we have to be looking at how do we keep these things connected to each other, because that's really because it's all part of our individual identities.
Wouldn't it be great if everybody could work their passion?
I mean,
right?
Yeah. I think the interesting thing. I think follow your passion is terrible advice. Because you would only know that you're passionate about things you have past experience in. So like it's the quintessential commencement speech type thing, but if you're giving it to an 18-year-old undergraduate, it's like, well, you don't know much yet about the myriad of things you could choose to do. I'd say, wouldn't it be great if everybody can develop a passion for what they're doing, and if that's impossible, move to something else. But I do definitely want to see that. I just think it's also possible. I've found people that are passionate about the weirdest stuff that doesn't excite me at all, and I don't understand how even the 18-year-old version of them would be excited about it, and yet they're still super passionate about it, and that's what we want. So we can sort of learn that passion.
That's a good point. What are the 3 most important things a leader can do to empower others for organizational success?
3. Okay, I'm going to do a head fake on you. So I'm not going to give you 3, but it'll tell you the 3. So the number one piece of advice that I give to most leaders, with whether it's motivating employees, healthy organizations, etc., is we just came from a talk that's based off of the book on new management, which has 13 different practices in it. And I don't want to like say, oh, do these 3, but all of those practices usually came from leaders figuring out what was blocking their people from doing their best work, or from maintaining a healthy level of productivity and not causing burnout. They're all actually practices of elimination. This was going wrong, and we eliminated that thing. And what we replaced it with is either healthy, or sometimes we didn't replace it with anything, right? So they're all stem from leaders figuring out that. So that'd be the one piece of advice I would give, is figure out what's driving your people nuts, what's blocking them from doing their best work, what's causing them to burn out, what's causing that strife. It's different in every organization, but figure out what that one thing is and eliminate it, and then you'll probably find the next thing and eliminate it. And then eventually you'll get to 3, maybe you'll get to more, but what you will definitely get to is a healthier and better performing organization.
That's a good point, very good point. What is your advice to managers who've been taught that if you want to have a productive organization, you can just care about people and or employees?
You can or you can't?
Can't.
You can't. Where are they going to school? Where are they being taught that? No, I'm kidding. I mean, there is this weird, I don't know if it's because The Godfather was a good movie or what it is, but there is that whole like, oh, it's not personal, it's just business. But the system that we're in now, that doesn't exist. I mean, there was a time when the class, the profession of manager was responsible for dealing with largely a factory, for being the foreman, for being away from your people and looking down on the line and making sure it's working. And theoretically, you can manage that with a spreadsheet. But the truth is, you just can't. And what's interesting to me is the MBA was created for that reason. It was created for teaching engineers how to manage people, and for the first couple of decades that was a very analytical decision, and arguably in some places it still is. We teach to make decisions via spreadsheet, right? And that's one of the things actually I really enjoy about the myriad of what I call sort of practitioner master's programs that are not MBAs. They're master's degrees in people. Because the thing that I often tell them is that all a spreadsheet can tell you, just like an engineer on an assembly line, all a spreadsheet can tell you is where the problem is. What the problem is almost always people. So you have to learn how to solve those people problems.
I think that for some old school managers, for the sake of a better term, is the investment in the emotions. And I think I could go down a long path with that, but I think it's hard for some people to become emotionally invested.
Right.
Because it's easier to say goodbye, or it's easier to be an authoritative figure if they aren't emotionally invested.
It's certainly easier to fire somebody, right?
Yes.
But yeah, and we actually see a trend towards this in some capacity. So there's a lot of firms in the Silicon Valley area that are starting to use, led predominantly by Netflix, that are starting to use this analogy of like, well, we're not one big family, we're a sports franchise. Right? But even a sports franchise cares about the emotions and all of those other things that contribute to performance when they're a member of that team. So I do get the desire to have a little bit more, if we are going to have average tenure at a company be 4 to 5 years instead of 40, I get the idea that we need to be comfortable with saying goodbye. I don't think that solution is to not be emotional to begin with. It's actually one of the reasons in the book I advocate for that celebrate departures idea and treating employees like alumni, because assuming they left the organization on good terms, it's way better to keep the positive affect going and see what benefits come out from it 10 years from now when they're still just proud to be a former employee.
I loved what you said during your session about having the other pool. So if somebody's going to leave an organization, by and large, they're going to go into another organization that's directly affiliated. And that way there's this quid pro quo that you're able to do between organizations and with talented pool of people and being able to share existing, information.
Yeah, I mean, especially with talent, right? Like being a great place to work is great. That's a good first step to being a talent magnet. Being a great place to have worked is the next step, right? So that your employees, your former employees, are really ambassadors, and when they find somebody in the new organization or just in the new world that they're in that would be a good fit and that they know is dissatisfied with their current job, they can be a source of those referrals. So yeah, being a great place to work is great, and that's healthy organization, sort of 1.0. 2.0, I think, involves also thinking about how do we be a great place to have work as well.
It's wonderful. Last question. Students, What is your advice for students who are interested in entering the fields of organizational psychology or human resources?
Don't, at least not at first. I mean, I'm kidding, but I'm also not. I think what we need organizationally are people in the HR function and the organizational psychology function that also understand the other functions, finance, marketing, etc. And so I'm much more excited when I see somebody that has an interest in both. So I want to know how this works, but I want to be a salesman, a sales manager first, or whatever. So I struggle to advise, especially undergraduates, how do you to go into HR first. I think it's a great, I teach the classes, so I think it's a fascinating thing to study. But I think what we need organizationally are people that can speak both languages. And the same thing to people that are in the field and are working adults. I'm thinking that's probably the best scenario is you've been in some other role and you're now, whether it's through training or through the hiring process or through benefits management, a lot of people come from even sort of finance, etc. I think we need to see that cross-pollination more. So I guess not don't, that's kind of being mean, but think about what other function you want to learn about. Because one of the big things in the HR world is how do we get a seat at the table, that senior leadership table. Well, everybody at that table knows how everybody else's function contributes to the greater organization, and the HR needs to as well. And so, in general, I think it creates more opportunities to get a seat at that table if we know that. So I think it's a fascinating field, and I think it's a great complement to just about every other function. And that would be a perfect world. If everyone from accounting also knew how HR worked, it would be an awesome organization.
Absolutely, I completely agree. Thank you so much for your time. I know that you're going back to Oklahoma today. Mm-hmm. Right. We really appreciated you being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.